You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den with Logan Ury. Why feeling the spark doesn't mean he's the one. And the one thing to look for instead. Ladies, welcome into the Dating Den. You know that I just finished, I'm really proud, 60 episodes of Love Island. And what does this have to do with my next guest? Well, we were recording for a minute and we heard a buzz. And what they say when they're really excited on Love Island is, I'm buzzing. And so while we heard a buzz and there is no longer a buzz, I'm buzzing about our next guest, Logan Ury. She's amazing. She's a behavioral scientist turned dating coach. She's the author of a new book. I love the title, How to Not Die Alone. That's really what it's about. She's the director of relationship science at the dating app Hinge, and she leads a research team dedicated to helping people find love. She studied psychology at Harvard. She ran Google's behavioral science team called the Irrational Lab. She was a 2018 TED resident. She was a featured speaker at South by Southwest?
Yeah, but this is already getting...
I know. Wait, but isn't South by Southwest like a festival?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they had speakers at that. I want to go to that. That's like I thought it was like a fun music festival.
Oh, no, they have like the music component, the film component, and then they have a huge tech and kind of general interest. I've been speaking there since 2017. It's really fun.
Well, I'm going to go. So I told you before, like I'm going to live in an RV and travel around the country, and I want to go to a lot of festivals. So now you just made me really excited about South by Southwest. I can come here and you speak. And she lives in the Bay Area with her husband, Scott. All super impressive, and you're such a lovely human as well. I'm fascinated about, I looked, I thought like, what do I want to talk to Logan about? And the thing that really is just like my passion is when people worry about their type and they discount dating, really quality humans because of this shit they have going on about like, he's not smart enough, he's not cute enough, he's not like all the not enoughs. And I know that we share that. So I just wanted to launch right in, like, why are people usually wrong about this? What are the mistakes that you see them making?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me and bearing with me on that long intro. I'm so happy to be talking to your audience about this. I think it's one of the most important mistakes that people make in dating and something that we can really fix. And so I work as a dating coach. I have worked as a matchmaker, and people approach me and they say, I don't really need your help figuring out who to date. I know who I want to be with. I just need your help finding them. And they're so focused on, okay, I need the 6-foot+ businessman who has a graduate degree and, 6 foot with 6 figures, that whole thing. And they're so focused on finding this person. But when I actually dig in with them, it often turns out that people are wrong about who they think they should be with. And so if you have this so-called type and you're so focused on finding it, what if that's actually not the right person for you long term? Well, you're never going to figure that out if you keep only dating people like that. So my whole approach is date like a scientist, which is this idea that you should have an open mind when figuring out what kind of person is going to make you happy in your relationship. And so if you think he has to be tall, date someone short and see if it really matters to you. If you think that they need to have a beard or a graduate degree, date someone without that. And so what you're really doing is you're testing your assumptions. I need this. He must have that. And if you figure out that a different kind of person is who makes you happy long term, then you've won. Because if you just stick with the type, then you're just repeating the same mistakes you've made over and over again.
I love this. I did this when I was dating, and I had this idea I wanted to date a tall dude. And so what I did was I Googled celebrity women who have husbands that are shorter than them. And there were so many, right? I was like Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, right? And I was like, wait, if I embody like this goddess, like I am Nicole Kidman, I'm going to go on these dates with short guys. And I did. And I was there was one guy, he was so great. And he had shoes with like high heel shoes. And so what I realized was it wasn't that he was short, it was that he didn't feel enough in his shortness.
Yeah.
Right?
Insecurity, not the height. Yeah. I think that's such a smart point.
Yeah, because I was like, he's so funny and he's so cute. And I was totally having chemistry with him. In fact, we were kind of making out on the couch and then he like went, into the kitchen and he had taken his shoes off. And I looked at his shoes and I was like, oh God. And I was just like, wah, wah, wah. And it was, so I think these are really good things because then you can ask yourself these high quality questions and what are the values, right? So the value is like, I want someone who's confident and blah, blah, blah. And just be into his shortness, not, trying to compensate or hide it. So I love this. When you think about like a behavioral science lens, what are the other assumptions that you think that ladies should just start testing right away?
Oh, yes, I love this. And so behavioral science is the study of how we make decisions. And the premise is that oftentimes we make decisions that are irrational. And so for me, I think about this in terms of saying like, oh, I want to eat healthier. I'm going to start an exercise routine. But then, of course, something else gets in the way, right? It's like we do an hour more of email or we watch the final episode of Succession, whatever it is. And so we set out to have these goals, but oftentimes our behavior just gets in the way and we don't achieve them. And so if you take a behavioral science approach to dating, it's what are all the things that are getting in your way and preventing you from achieving those goals? And then how can you make different decisions to actually help yourself? And so as part of this, I've developed this thing that I call the 3 dating tendencies. And we can get into this more, but it's basically the most common mistakes that I've seen people make in dating. And they're all about these unrealistic expectations. And so the first one is the romanticizer, and they have unrealistic expectations of love and relationships. And I'm going to find my soulmate. It's going to be so easy. And then the second one is unrealistic expectations of your partner. This is called the maximizer. This is that person who says, oh, I like my girlfriend, but could she be 10% hotter or 5% funnier, 13% more ambitious? I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is what I hear.
Yep.
And then the last one is the hesitator, which has come up so much during the pandemic. And this is the person who has unrealistic expectations of themselves. And they're always saying, I'm not ready to date yet, because I am not lovable and I need to get a more impressive job or save up more money or, move cities. And there's just something that I need to do first and then I'll be ready to date. And what ends up happening, of course, is that they just never put themselves out there and they don't date.
Yeah, that's like we have a lot of ladies who come to us. They're like they're avoiders.
Totally.
Right. Yeah. And so they have big patterns of avoiding and procrastinating. And so a lot of them they come in and they're like, all right, I'm totally committed. But they have this avoidance or perfectionistic patterns, right? And so then they sabotage themselves by the other two. Right? It's like, okay, I'm going to really do this. And then if you don't really deal with these core issues, these other two types of mistakes people make sort of will get in your way. So you really have to have this holistic approach.
So sometimes people will email me and they'll say, I took the quiz on your website and I there's something wrong with me. I'm all 3 of these, but you can be all 3 because you could be, let's say, a romanticizer in that you expect your soulmate to look a certain way and you expect love to be something that just happens to you. But then you also are being a maximizer because you want the person to look and feel and act a certain way. But really, the biggest problem is that you're a hesitator because you're not dating at all because you won't put yourself out there. And so I say, let's start with the last one, actually. Let's just get you back there. Get you back out there dating, help you understand that no one is ever 100% ready. And at some point you just have to start dating and then we can tackle the other 2. So if you're listening to this and wondering which one you are, if you are not dating right now because you feel like you're just not lovable or you're just not 100% ready, then I would say you're a hesitator and let's tackle that first.
I think that's so awesome. I love that you put a name to it. So let's talk about the idea of nobody will live up into my expectations. And I have this romantic idea of how it should be. And I think so many of our listeners their come from is like shitty relationships, right? Then their whole mindset is like, well, I'm never doing that again. Right. So they just are like, so it all has to be completely different. And they're sort of like metaphorically arms crossed, brow furrowed, being like, prove to me you're not a dick. Or prove to me you're not going to scam me. Or prove to me you're trustworthy. Or prove to me all these separate little things that really like get in the way. So where do you recommend people sort of go when they're just coming from this place of fear, and it's why they're living into these types that you put together?
Yes, I think that's a great point. If you can recognize what these things are, but it's really important to think about why they happen. And so it's not just as easy as saying, oh, I'm going to stop assuming that love will find me and that there's a soulmate out there for me. It's not something that you can just make a decision about and it magically happens. And so if we think about where this comes from, I think a lot of people have been hurt in the past. A lot of people are acting from a place of fear. They want to protect themselves. I think a lot of people have low self-confidence and feel like I'm just not lovable. And so why would I expect someone else to love me before I love myself? And I just want to acknowledge that all of that is true, and that many of the people I work with in a dating coaching capacity are also in therapy. But being in therapy and working on yourself doesn't preclude you from dating. You can do these things in parallel. And so it's not about, oh, I'm flawed now and then I'll become perfect and then I'll be ready to date. It's really, you're flawed. You're going to continue to be flawed. Everyone else is flawed. The person you're going to wind up with is flawed. And the most that I can ask is that you keep working on yourself and being realistic about who you are and what you want and how you're showing up. And that if you just take away this myth of perfection and you think about the fact that we're all works in progress, then it becomes a lot less intimidating to go out there and say, here's who I am now, and here's what I'm working towards. And hopefully the person will show up in the same way.
I really love this. I also believe you don't even know what you don't know until you start dating. So if you just say, I'm going to work on myself, right? Or I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to do like these things you're going to do first, you will never know actually what your intimacy challenges are unless you put yourself out there and you've had a bad date or you actually really like someone, right? So even you're working on stuff that may not even help you get to the next level. And that's why I love talking to ladies who do therapy, they do coaching, and they get over the past, right? And then they finally get lovable, Logan, and they get like enough. And then they don't want to put it to the test, right? They don't want to go to the, like, what do I do when I open my heart back up again? And so I love that you're saying, like, great, put yourself out there. And then that's like your curriculum, really, right?
Yes. And you're making so many good points that I want to underline. And so one of them is like, it's as if you think that dating happens in a vacuum, that if you just sit in your living room doing Zoom therapy appointments with your therapist and reading books, then suddenly one day you'll wake up and be ready to date. But that's just not true. Dating is something that occurs between you and another person. It's a relational dynamic. And so you could spend years, quote unquote, getting ready to date, but really the only way to get better at dating is by actually dating. And so it's kind of like stand-up comedy, where comics say, stand-up comedy only happens when you're live in front of an audience. Other than that, it's just writing. It's just writing jokes. And so if you want to get better at dating, you actually have to be out there dating.
I love that. Okay. There's a million things I want to talk about with you. So let's go to the next thing. You talk about going for the slow burn rather than the spark. And I think that so many of our listeners, they are looking for like this chemistry, this hotness, whether it's like how you felt when you were 16 or you just want to like rip someone's clothes off. These are like the things that people think are like how they rule people out. And I know that you and I are on the same page about like what should we really be looking at.
Yes, this is a funny one because when you write a book, we were just talking about, is it stand-up comedy or is it writing? Well, writing a book is a pretty solo activity, and you don't really know what's going to resonate with people beyond what you've done, what I've done, what I did. Excuse me. You don't really know what's going to resonate with people. So it's been fun to have the book come out in February, and this chapter, Fuck the Spark, has taken on a life of its own. And I love that it's sort of become my unofficial tagline. And so the idea here is that I would have these dating coaching clients, and they would come talk to me a day after a date, and they'd say, Logan, I met this woman. she was beautiful and charismatic and clearly brilliant. We had so much to talk about. I'd say, wow, that sounds great. And they would say, yep, I'm just not going to see her again. I'd say, what are you talking about? And the person would say, oh, I just didn't feel the spark. And so to me, the spark became this all-encompassing word that meant I didn't feel butterflies. I didn't feel instant chemistry. I didn't see rainbows and puppies. And what I learned is that people are really expecting to have this rom-com moment where you, quote unquote, know it or you don't. And so even though they'd have these really promising dates with people that they could have been in a great relationship, they'd say, I'm just not going to go out with them because of the spark. And so I've taken it on myself to demystify the spark and say, here's the top 3 reasons why, you're getting things wrong about it. And so the first myth of the spark is that it can't grow over time. That's just not true. I knew my husband for over 8 years before we started dating, and we weren't in constant contact that whole time. But when I would spend time with him, he would grow on me. I'd see how funny he was, how kind, how smart, how interesting. And the spark definitely grew for us. That's why people date someone that they work with, because over time you just get to know them more and you like them. The second myth is that if you feel the spark, it must be a good thing. And that's definitely not true. I'm sure you've seen this. Some people are just really sparky. They give that feeling to everyone. They might be really hot, really charismatic, maybe really narcissistic, and they're just great at getting people to feel that vibe with them. But that doesn't mean that you have a special connection. It's more about who they are and how they come across. And then the third myth is that if you have a spark, this must be a viable relationship. This must be something to pursue. And that's just not true. A lot of now divorced or unhappily married couples once had the spark. And the issue is you can start with a spark, but unless it lasts, you're really just staying together for this how we met story. And so my whole thing is fuck the spark, go for the slow burn, go for the person who is reliable and makes you feel great and shows up for you and is really the kind of person where the love is going to grow versus starting off hot and going down from there.
I remember back in the day, and I don't know did you watch Sex and the City? Was that your vibe?
Yeah,
your time?
I watched Sex and the City, and I've been rewatching at least the first 2 seasons over the pandemic.
I love it. Okay, so Kristen Smith ends up with Harry, right? The bald guy.
Of course.
Right? Yeah, right? And I always think about that, right? Because that guy was like not, well, for some people, maybe they thought he was super hot, but my remembering him as a character in the show is he's just this great guy, right? But they end up having like amazing sex, right? And they end up having this like really deep connection. And I think that when you really start to ask yourself like these high quality questions about like, why is dating not working for me? And you look at your patterns and you are singly focused on the spark or chemistry or whatever it is, and it's not working for you, hello, like figure something else out because we're not 16 and chemistry and sparks can totally grow. And how long have you been married?
I've been with my husband for 6.5 years, and we've been married for 1 year.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's so cute. That's amazing. Okay, I've been with my husband like 13 years. I was married to my other husband for like 17. All I can say is that the spark is amazing, and chemistry is great, and sex is fun, and all of those sorts of things, right? But as you evolve into a long-lasting, deep partnership and a commitment, right? Like, there's so many other things that are like really important. And even if you just always only have that thing that you want to rip your husband's clothes off, when somebody gets really fucking annoying, doesn't matter how hot they are, or they don't have the same values as you, or you're not looking to have the same kind of vision, it doesn't even matter because you won't be attracted to them. Even if they're like fucking, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, whoever you think is like the hottest person ever. So to me, this is just like one of the biggest mistakes people make. I feel so passionate about it.
Yes, I love it. And I'm so glad you brought up that Sex and the City one, because I think that's one of the most memorable examples, because Charlotte really started from this place of I want the perfect wasp with the perfect hair. And then who ends up making her happiest long term is someone who's totally different from that. And just the fact that she struggles with it, but is open to it and able to embrace that he makes her feel great, I think is such a good and memorable lesson for people. And yeah, so if you're listening to this and you've spent years looking for a certain person, and then you find yourself on a date and you tell your friends, I like him, but he's not really my type. Ding, ding, ding. That might actually be the secret to your success, is that when somebody is not your type, you're breaking bad habits, you're being open to something new. And it's very possible that your type wasn't making you happy. And this is actually the person who you should be with.
I love this. Okay, let's talk about some trends that you are seeing right now in online dating. We're like, I feel people are like, the pandemic was in the past. Are we in the I mean, I don't even know. It's been like the state of just where we are right now. So let's just not even make it be about the pandemic. It's just the state of dating today. What are some trends that you have been seeing in online dating and some issues that people are challenged with right now?
Yeah. So online dating in general, super interesting. I work at Hinge, so I'm up close and personal with a lot of data around not only what's going on in dating, but specifically what's been going on with dating during the pandemic. And so the biggest thing is that we've seen a huge rise in video dating. Before the pandemic, video dating was not really something you did with somebody new. Maybe you had cute FaceTimes with your partner, or that was something where you kept in touch if you were long distance. But now we're seeing that people are just starting off with video dates, and it's this low pressure vibe check to say, can we hold a conversation, and do we maybe want to meet up in person in the future?
Which I love.
Yeah, I used to be anti-video dating before the pandemic. I had this feeling of, it makes it feel like a job interview and you're screening me before we meet, and it's so cold, and people who are less attractive are going to be at a disadvantage. But I've really changed my tune on this. I think dating is just hard and expensive and time consuming, and people burn out all the time. If video dating is a way that you can maintain your momentum and feel safe and comfortable, especially during a pandemic, I'm all for it. And so I think it's been a great way for people to still put themselves out there, even when it's been a really hard time.
And I also think, and I'm curious if you all at Hinge have any tips about how to do it intentionally and do it well, because I think, because I've had interviewed people for jobs, right, where they're like sitting in a dark room with like a massive interrogation spotlight right on their head. How do you maximize that opportunity? Given that all of us aren't, Hollywood lighting execs, and we want to present ourselves well in those online virtual dates.
Yeah, I can definitely give tips for video dating. So one of them is exactly what you just referred to, which is you want to look your best, right? There's sort of this joke of people who have their cameras, under their heads, and you can see their chins, and it's this unflattering angle. And it's like, come on, dating is about looking accurate, but also looking your best. So yeah, the first one is you just want to look your best. So practice your angle in advance. I mean, we've all been Zooming and Google Meeting and FaceTiming for a long time now, but you want to have an angle that looks good. You want pretty good lighting. You want to feel physically comfortable. And so really just practicing your setup and making sure that you look and feel your best. Another thing is, what are the advantages? What is something that you probably wouldn't do on a regular date that you could do on a video date? And that might be taking somebody on a tour of your house, showing them your collection of old baseball cards or your 100 pairs of high-heeled shoes, or even get silly, show them what's in your kitchen and challenge them to make something with all the ingredients in their fridge. Who knows? But you don't just have to feel limited by video dating. You can actually feel inspired and creative and use it as a chance to explore dating in a new way.
I love that idea about being creative, because it's not a job interview, and we want to really understand that people are open to that now. And I think a lot of the ladies are afraid to ask. So one of the things that we see, and I'd love for you to give me your opinion on how to handle that answer to the question of hey, let's jump on a video call, whether we use the app that we're on or whatever it is. And some guys are like, I don't want to do that. Just give me your number. How do How do you respond in an encouraging way? Or do you just rule somebody out if they don't want to do it? What's your opinion?
My opinion is that I think if somebody wants to talk on the phone, for me, that's as good as a video date. If someone's like, I'm just not that into video and I have Zoom fatigue, that's fine. But really, what you're going after is, can I have a conversation with somebody and what we call synchronous communication? So if you're texting with someone throughout the day and they respond when they can and you respond when you can, that's called asynchronous communication. But when you're actually having a live conversation, synchronous communication, that's when you can tell if you have chemistry. So whether it's a phone call or a video date, I would say to me, it's basically the same. But what I think you're asking is, what if the person doesn't want to do that at all and just wants to text and then meet up? What I would say is something like, hey, I found that I really love hearing somebody's voice before we go out. And I learn a lot about somebody from a call. And this is a way that I found that I really feel more comfortable meeting up with someone first. Would you be open to a 10-minute call? And maybe we can both go for a healthy walk around our neighborhood and talk on the phone after work today, or just something where you explain, like, this is why it's important to me. This is why I'm asking for it. This is about me and my feeling of safety versus, oh, you seem sketchy, or I need to make sure you are who you say it are. Make it about yourself and your needs, and the person is more likely to be open to it.
I love that. And I'm glad that you brought up how people interpret that question, because I'm always reminding our listeners, right? Like, your intention sometimes is well meant, but the impact it makes is on someone and their own stuff. And I think that especially for women who are dating men, they're so afraid of being accused or being creepy, or they don't want to be pervy, or they just don't want to be too much, right? They just don't know what to do anymore. The rules have changed and are changing. And so I love that you're making it be about the person who's making the request. And it's a great way to practice asking to get your needs met. And if the guy still doesn't do it, then it's awesome, because now you realize he's not your person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's so, I felt the same way about dating during the pandemic. Yes, it adds all these complications, but it's also a chance to have a hard conversation earlier. Will you be wearing a mask? Who's in your quarantine pod? Are we going to socially distance? Can I kiss you? All of these questions that are pretty new in terms of navigating this very odd moment, they're also a chance to see, is this the type of person that I can have a hard conversation with? Do they lean in and talk to me about their preferences, or do they lean out and get awkward and defensive and say, oh, why do you think I'm going to put you in danger? Or why do I have to wear a mask if we're meeting up outside? So really taking it as an opportunity to learn more about who that person is. Even if you don't get the answer you want, at least you got information that's very valuable to you.
I think, and what makes me smile is, before the pandemic, people would have sex with someone without having any of these conversations, right? About STDs, about values, about what are you looking for, right? These difficult conversations. But we would be physically intimate with them. And so what I love, my favorite takeaway from the pandemic is, yes, you're having practice at real problem solving, speaking your needs, seeing how someone really connects into you and your needs long before you're ever physically intimate, which I think is a really great way to see if someone is a person you can be with long term. So I think it's been amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. The silver lining is that you're getting to have hard conversations earlier.
What else? Any other challenges that you see that women are facing right now as they're dating?
Yes. So one thing that's been really interesting about the pandemic is that I've seen a lot of people feel like they're running out of time, that dating before was something that they were kind of focusing on, but they thought it would just happen to them, or, oh, I'll focus on dating after XYZ and my life is in place. And now I think stripping back a lot of the parts of life that we had before. So working from an office, going to networking events, going to conferences, going to happy hours, going to parties, all of that's been taken away. And when you really strip back life, what you're surrounded by with is your relationships. And so I've found that intimate relationships have become much more important to people. And the emails that I'm getting are from people who are saying, I'm finally ready to prioritize dating. Dating has become the number one thing in my life. And so I've been really happy to see that a lot of people are being more honest with themselves about wanting to find someone. And so when you have that motivation, people are showing up in a different way. And so I've seen a lot of enthusiasm for dating, for finding relationships, for putting themselves out there even when they're afraid. And so one big trend I've seen is a huge motivation towards making dating a priority instead of potentially hiding behind work priorities or friend commitments. Not that that stuff doesn't matter, but if finding someone's important to you, then you need to show up for yourself in that way.
Yeah, and I can't remember the statistic, but at one point, and maybe it was even from Hinge or some app, where they actually had data that were showing that there were more people online looking for more serious relationships than ever before versus just hookup.
Oh, yeah. So this is a big thing at Hinge. So already Hinge was well positioned for this moment because it's the dating app that's designed to be deleted and it's all about getting people off the app and onto dates. But this has happened even more during the pandemic because we really saw what we called the relationship renaissance, which is people saying, I don't want to go out with someone that I'm not interested in long term, and I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to message with someone that it's not going to turn into anything. And so there's really been this feeling that people are being more selective, more intentional, more thoughtful, and that's really leading to not just casual hookups, because you know what, people aren't feeling that casual right now. People really want intimacy and connection, and it's leading to relationships.
I love that. So last thing I want to talk to you about is resiliency. Because whether you are one of those types we talked about earlier or all three, it's really easy to go back into your hole. You're like, oh, Logan told me to be optimistic and to to date outside my type. And I did that 3 times and it didn't work. So fuck that. How do you stay resilient? How does it impact how you end up showing up?
This is a great question. And so something that we studied at Hinge is burnout. And burnout's really common, right? People feel a wave of motivation and they date and then they're messaging all these people and they're going on dates and then they feel super overwhelmed. And it might be because they're not finding the results that they want, or they are going on too many dates and it's not sustainable. They're not doing the things that make them happy, whatever it is. We've seen a ton of dating burnout. And what I had always thought in the past is that if you're feeling burned out, you should take a break. But in our research at Hinge, what we found is actually one of the reasons why people feel burned out is because they feel like they're not in control. And so what ends up happening, especially for women who are getting a lot of likes or matches, is that people are attracted to them and interested in them, and they are receiving a lot of interest. And then they feel overwhelmed and they don't know who to go out with. But what actually makes people feel less burned out is feeling in control. So sending messages, going after what you want, feeling like you're in the driver's seat of your life. And so what this research has shown me is that if you're feeling burned out, it's not necessarily time to take a break. It's time to reassess, are you being reactive or proactive? And how can you feel more proactive? Because that will help you feel less burned out.
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting, and we've done lots of podcast episodes on this, is this myth that women can't reach out, right? That you're just in there responding to all of these messages, right? That it's not in the feminine, right? If you just connect with someone. And so I love this idea of being empowered to really start to also question some of your beliefs about how it's supposed to look, because, and I'd love for you to address this as we sort of head into the final moments here, how is online dating different than, going into a place where you would, play eye tennis with someone and then hope they come over, right? Because we can't do that. We're just looking at a flat screen or a device. So what can women do to feel empowered?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's that anyone who's sitting out there saying, oh, I need to let the person come to me, and guys want someone that they can't have, and I need to play a game. I'm just so over that. Dating should be fun and it should be playful, and you should play games and have fun together, but it's not about playing a game of playing hard to get. And so really, we are living in a world now where people are happy to receive messages, and you'll be happier if you send messages. So I just want to reinforce that point, that you should absolutely be going after what you want. Not only are you more likely to find the kind of person you're interested in, but it also means that you'll likely feel less burned out.
I love that.
Yes. And so for someone who misses the days where people hit on you in person or you went to a bar, trust me, I hear that all the time. People say, nobody ever hits on me out and about anymore. And I think that's even more true in the pandemic. But you can also think about this moment as having some advantages, right? You open up your phone and you have an entire pool of people who you know are single, who are looking for something. You can message them. If they're not interested, you won't necessarily hear back, but it's really an opportunity to see, who's single and who's looking. And this has been especially true for what's known as thin markets. So those are people who are over 50, people who are in the LGBTQ plus community, people in rural communities. And so as much as people miss the days of in-person flirtation and what you called eye tennis, I think it's also a huge advantage to just say who's out there and looking for love.
Well, yeah. And I also read a stat that said geography is 100% not as much of an issue as it was before, where people before were it has to be 10 to 20 miles, in my radius. Mm-hmm. And now the data is showing something different, right?
Yeah, I've seen mixed things. I've seen some people are less open to long distance relationships because traveling is harder, but other people are I'm dating over Zoom anyway. Why does it matter? And so really, we've seen so many aspects of human behavior change. So many people moving back home with their parents or moving to their hometown or working remotely, or it seems like everyone I know is moving to Austin. And so among all these changes, people have been more open to different ways of dating and dating different types of people.
I love it. You have just been a treasure trove of possibility, Logan. I love this so much. And I think that's really what I want our listeners to take away is what Logan talked about is how easy it is to be in one of those sort of three places that you mentioned early in the show. And there's just a bucket of limiting beliefs and assumptions and ways to stay stuck. And what you've really illuminated for us today is that if you can get out of your own way, you don't have to die alone.
Yay. Well, I had so much fun talking to you. Thank you for all the thoughtful questions. It's been such an honor to connect with your audience. And yeah, I'm just excited for more to come.
And ladies, whatever you do, remember, don't go for your type and do it with some damn dignity. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWDVIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.